Hello everyone, it's Nick Lawson with CDC Take Charge Software, and this is Lesson 3 on having fun with graphics in Alpha software. As we mentioned at the end of our last lesson, we were going to be expanding on our pong table. If you remember, or if you looked at it, we had our paddle, we had our ball, we have our table surface, and the ball would move on the horizontal plane and bounce forwards and back. As long as it struck the paddle. If it missed the paddle, then it would hit the edge of the table and the game would end. Today what we're doing is we're adding angles. Now let's watch it work. So we've got our ball bouncing. I had it bounce up by hitting the top of the paddle. It goes up to the top of the screen, strikes, hits the back wall, strikes, and returns. Now I can have it hit the bottom of the paddle and it'll go at a down angle. There you go. And then bounce up, hit the back wall, and again, and so forth and so on, and keep going until you miss the ball or you stop the game. Okay, to make that happen, we had to take and consider several things. First, before I say that, you notice it was moving rather slow. Well, that was by design because if it's running at a normal game speed, I couldn't keep up with the ball, so I didn't want to embarrass myself. So now, having it run nice and slow, I can make it hit the paddle and everything looks cool. Okay, the things we need to know. We need to know where the ball is positioned on the screen at all times. We need to know what the ball's going to do when it strikes the paddle on the left side of the screen. We need to know what happens when the ball strikes the top of the screen, the back wall, and the bottom of the screen. All those things determine the ball movement on the screen and then allows the game to play correctly. Let's take a look at how that works in a code. Okay, first we have to set our variables when we click play ball. So let's look at that. Come over here. There you go. We set X bounce to bounce. We set our direction to left because that's where we want to start. We're heading left so that the ball will strike the paddle for the first time. And then we set DL, which is the variable we use in our on-timer event to tell the game to run. We set our length to 0 and our angle to 0. Then we take and assign the ball to the screen and set the positions to our variables. We do the same thing with our paddle, and not only do we set the position of the paddle, but we also set the height. Then we turn the ball and the paddle on and the game's ready to play. Now, the on-timer event is broken down into 4 segments. First, of course, we have to take and say that if DL equals bounce ball, then keep running the timer event. Then we want to take and determine if we fail to strike the ball. So we do that by reading the position of the ball on the screen, and if that position is less than 1, we fail to strike the paddle. If that's the case, then the game ends, and we set the visibility of the paddle and the ball to false. The game's over. Now, if that doesn't occur, then we want to take and again read the position of the ball, both the left position and the top position. And we want to read the length of our object. So text1 object, which is our paddle, height tells us what the length is. Now we use that value to determine where on the paddle the ball strikes, which is the code right here. And I'm not going to go through all these lines of code. If you want to see how they're written, go to the blog and you'll be able to see it. It'll be printed in the blog. We have 4 areas of the paddle, which is the top 25%, the top 26 to 50%, the middle of the paddle, the top 50 to 75%, and finally the top 75%. Each one sets the ball off at a different angle. Now, if it's not moving left and striking a paddle, it's moving right and striking the back wall. Here we do the same thing, only instead of finding the position on the paddle, we're finding the position on the back wall, which is left 7.9. and we read the angle, because once it gets to the back wall, it's already traveling at an angle, and it's going to be one of these four angles, um, or I'm sorry, five angles, where zero is actually if it's running perpendicular uh, to the paddle. And again, we take and set those so that 0.10 actually works out to like a 21.5% angle. 0.05 is a 12.5% angle. And that's going up the screen, and this is going down the screen. When the ball's moving left, that's reversed. Um, but it works basically the same way. Now notice that once the ball is moving right or left, we have to determine whether or not it strikes the top or the bottom of our screen. So we do that by setting ball top to, if it's less than and equal to 0.5, it's reached the top of the screen. If it's greater than or equal to 5.9, it's reached the bottom of the screen. Now remember that reading a graphic starts from the top to the bottom. So 0.5 would be at the top of the vertical position, and 5.9 would be at the bottom. Okay? Once we know that, then we just need to take and know what was the angle when it struck and multiply it. If it's above those or below that or above that, multiply times a -1, which reverses our angle. And the ball changes direction. It's pretty simple. All right, same thing going right. Exactly the same code. Now, once we know what the ball position is on a screen, we assign it back to our object. Then we read through and run the whole thing again on the next timer strike, unless the ball position is less than 1.3, in which case the ball missed the paddle and the game ends. Let's take another look at it. So we're going to come over here and we're going to watch it play. There you go. Now, as you can see, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And this was all a lot of fun, and we're assigning angles and values, and they're hard-coded, and then we use multipliers to change those variable values so that the ball moves about the screen or gives the appearance of animation based on what we're trying to do. What we want to do next is have our graphics and objects be manipulated by values stored in a database table. To do that, what we're going to do is create a CAD program. Now this would be a very simple program. It's not going to rival AutoCAD. They have nothing to worry about. But it will show us how we can basically write a design program or CAD program using alpha software and property values for objects on a screen. That's it for today, folks. I hope you had fun, and I hope you are following along trying to do this stuff. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.